The biggest question regarding consciousness is whether it is simply a product of our brain or if the brain is just the receiver of consciousness.
Well, the question about source of consciousness usually refers back to the brain. Because if you start scooping out bits of the brain, then people don't have consciousness anymore, so it's easy to make an inference that it's somehow created by the object in there. And that may be the case. But of course, the alternative is that consciousness is somehow out there, and the brain is a particularly suited device or system that evolution has evolved in order to be able to receive it, or to reflect it, or to somehow be influenced by it. And the neuroscientists today don't actually have a good answer to that question, because when we take measurements from the brain, what we see are correlations. The correlations are pretty good. Your conscious awareness and thoughts and cognition and so on is correlated with brain stuff, but it doesn't necessarily point at the arrow of causation.
Is your brain really necessary? Was the title of an article published in the Science magazine in 1980 about the work of British pediatrician John Lorber. For several decades, researchers had documented anecdotal cases of individuals with very little or no brain, but Lorber, who also served as a member of the Nobel Prize Committee, was the first to investigate them systematically and scientifically. He documented over 600 scans of people with the brain disorder called hydrocephalus and broke them into 4 groups. 1, those with nearly 100% normal brains. 2, those with 50 to 70% of the cranium filled with cerebrospinal fluid. 3, those with 70 to 90% of the cranium filled with cerebrospinal fluid. 4, those with 95% of the cranial cavity filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Of the last group, who would normally be expected to be severely retarded, half had IQs greater than 100. One very dramatic example reported by Lorber was about a young student at the University of Sheffield with an IQ of 126. He had gained a first-class honors degree in mathematics and was socially completely normal. And yet the boy had virtually no brain. When Lorber did a brain scan, he saw that instead of the normal 4.5 centimeter thickness of brain tissue between the ventricles and the cortical surface, there was just a thin layer of mantle measuring a millimeter or so. His cranium was filled mainly with cerebrospinal fluid. This is just one among many cases documented all over the world of intelligent individuals with little or no physical brain. These cases are no doubt rare, but their rareness doesn't decrease their significance. Even if there's one case of a person with intelligence and consciousness but without a brain, that one case is enough to disprove the theory that consciousness is produced by the brain. Vedic insights help us understand that consciousness is the energy of the soul. Normally, the soul channelizes its consciousness through the brain into the body and the external world. This consciousness, perceived in the material body, known as chitta, and it is a stepped-down version of the original pure consciousness of the soul known as chit. By the processes of purification and meditation like mantra meditation, we can raise our consciousness from the chitta to the chit level. At that level of consciousness, each one of us can directly, personally, experientially verify higher spiritual realities like the spiritual world and the ultimate spiritual reality, God.